Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to part two of the Innovate lecture series. My name is Aman Nasif. I'm the programs manager at Innovate, and it's my pleasure to, on behalf of the Innovate team, to welcome you here today. We are very excited to continue the series that we started earlier this year in the spring with the goal to provide you with an opportunity to learn about the role of big data in the field of image-guided therapy and perhaps help you explore and navigate some of the key principles underlying the challenges of integrating AI into healthcare technologies and image-guided therapy applications. Before we get to the specifics of today's lecture, I would like to make a few housekeeping announcements. So with regards to the organization of these lectures, each lecture consists of a 40 to 45-minute talk, which is typically followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at ahmed.nasif@sunnybrook.ca, or you can use the Innovate mailbox, which is innovate@sunnybrook.ca. I'll be posting those emails in the chat for your convenience. I would like to announce that Sunnybrook and the University of British Columbia, Ryerson, and the University of Colorado are putting together an event this November on the 17th and 18th. It's a two-day virtual symposium that will bring together academia and industry and those who are interested in emerging diagnostic and therapeutic health technologies. It's an excellent opportunity you don't want to miss if you are looking for collaborations, partnerships, or even staying in the know on emerging innovations in the field of image-guided therapy. Again, I'll be posting the link for the event with details on registration in the chat shortly. Finally, please do not forget to subscribe to our e-newsletter at innovate.ca. Due to the Canadian anti-spam law regulations, we cannot send you any emails about upcoming events unless you have signed up for our e-newsletter and have given us consent to further communicate with you. So shifting gears to today, today we'll talk about the current state of AI in the field of healthcare and specifically image-guided therapy, talking about some of the current challenges and opportunities as well as the future directions for advancing image-guided therapy. I'm very delighted to be introducing our guest speaker, Jerlyn Oshab, the Chief Executive Officer of Imagia. She was also the Chief Business Officer there. She led the strategy and execution of the industry-first commercial and collaboration agreements. Jerlyn has over 25 years of experience as an innovative healthcare technology leader, and previous to these roles, she served as a VP Business Development and the Inspection Live Bank cord blood stem cell bank. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jerlyn. Jerlyn, thank you again very much for being our guest speaker this afternoon. We are very much looking forward to your talk.
Well, thank you very much, Ahmed, for that kind introduction. I'm really thrilled to be here with you today, especially that it's live, because I'm sure in this world of Zoom, we're used to being talked at. So I'm excited that we can engage in the end. This topic is really near and dear to my heart because it has so many parallel paths to my career and the road that I've taken. You heard a little bit about my career, but I just wanted to point out that I started out working in medical imaging from a clinical perspective. So in a hospital, in a medical imaging department. My first startup was a 3D visualization company. Shout out to those who are from London. I see a few names. And I had joined that startup a little bit later on, but one of the things that we had created was a 3D prostate brachytherapy planning product. And then that sort of followed on where I went to work for one of the first AI companies in Canada. And shall I say a neural networking company, because AI wasn't the sexy word as it was way back then. And then I worked for another Montreal-based company in the theme of image-guided therapy and AI that did radiation therapy for patient positioning. These were all sparse between my duties or tours of duties at GE and Toshiba. So it really has culminated with my role here at Imagia, where we focus on AI and are really a digital healthcare company driven to really deliver on the promise of personalized healthcare. So I am truly humbled to be part of this series of amazing talks. It's challenging because it's such a broad range of topics that can be covered in a very short period of time. I've taken the approach to give you to go from a large view of AI and healthcare and then hone it down to hopefully what's applicable to this group because you're here for image-guided therapy. The views I'm presenting on the challenges are those of my own. And I'm not a physician and don't play one on TV either. So I hope that you really just enjoy my perspective. So, you know, if you really take a step back of why we're all in, I assume, in one way, shape, or form, healthcare driven technologies, we know that from the moment symptoms appear and the pursuit of a diagnosis begins, patients often describe their journey as this with serious disease as a race against time. It's very important to make an early diagnosis, the right diagnosis, which means could be as simple as just ruling other things out, takes time. And the best treatment, ideally, is early treatment and targeted treatment. And then, of course, being on the right drug at the right time. I really, truly believe that AI healthcare has the potential to give back some of that time. So, oh, sorry, I just want to make sure my things are working. Okay, there we go. You guys see my slides, okay? Okay. So, however, there is challenges in making that happen and implementing AI in healthcare as a whole. The data is disorganized, but it's only organized for routine clinical access and not for outcome-based investigation. Healthcare data is abundant. I mean, healthcare data is abundant, and some reports say that it's doubling less than every 80 days. So the amount of data is just going to be astronomical. But astronomical data for data's sake, and I know no data, no AI, no data, no AI, but you really have to be able to optimize that data and cohort it so that it's ready for AI consumption. So if AI is going to deliver on the promise and potential, there's some fundamental things that need to happen as a whole. Those silos need to be removed from the data, making it accessible across organizations, allowing cohorting and structuring to happen, and leveraging the clinical insights, because without the clinical insights, it's just data. You want quality data, and you want that from the front line. And then you need to support the clinical adoption process and get access to patient data or real world data, all while ensuring privacy and security at scale. So the ultimate need is that it's become abundantly clear that collaboration is needed at all levels in order to make this happen. Now, this isn't a plug for Imagia, it's just to show you how we actually view what is needed. We really bring together the med device companies, pharma, the clinicians, AI experts across, our AI institutes in Canada and globally, and in industry organizations, and making sure that we connect them into hospital organizations where that data exists. So, it's hard to solve big problems unless you have big technology. And that big technology has to cross a lot of chasms, if you will. So some of the similarities just in general between AI from its inception and IGT, and when I say IGT, I mean image-guided therapy, just for not treatment, just in general, is, both were concepts of the 21st century. They're multidisciplinary and multimodal. They're disruptive technology, both in each of their own right, and they require harmonization of many different technologies and procedures. Complex solutions mean that it probably has to be a bespoke solution in order to make it to the patient. And as I said before, collaboration is absolutely necessary. Oops. So where are some of those key technologies for image-guided therapy? So now I'm going to sort of just take us into image-guided therapy specifically. In different types of solutions, there's all or some of these components. There's some form of imaging required or image processing. You need to be able to visualize the data, segment the data, register it, track it, and you need that human-computer interaction. And that is really disruptive from the very beginning. Many of the basic systems are basically a collection of these task-oriented initiatives, and some of them have dedicated systems that pool the resources and capabilities to bring this all together into a new complex system. So what are the opportunities? Now, I really took some time to think about how I could share my thoughts effectively with you. And this is the way I broke it down. We could argue if I'm missing something, I'm sure I am, but I think that just for digestible pieces, I think that I looked at it. For AI and IGT, we can look at 4 components. One is workflow solutions, which could be anything from patient scheduling, screening, and counseling. And then there's the clinical imaging decision and support tools that could be a part of treatment planning. And then image guidance during the procedure or before this procedure. And then there's training and education that all comes to be. So I just broke down each of these. So as far as the workflow solutions, AI may direct and optimize, for example, the interventional radiologist physician's daily practice with the intelligent patient scheduling and triage. This is very useful and very helpful, and can be one example of where AI could start in the process. The next one is clinical image decision support tools and treatment. So one of the biggest challenges for IGT is the identification of an accurate way to predict outcomes or success rate of a specific treatment in a patient or a specific group of patients, or to classify patients as responders and non-responders to a specific treatment regimen. One opportunity to take, and this is just one of many, to take advantage of this is an approach called radiomics. So, if we were in person, I'd get everybody to raise their hand if they've ever heard of radiomics. But essentially, really what it is, it's a method that really extracts a large number of features from medical images. At Imagia, we take what we call a deep radiomics approach, where it's not just images, we actually incorporate the clinical data and other clinical variables into that. And we found that, and we've compared just imaging features and features in the image with other variables. And of course, we find it very useful to have the bigger, more heteromodal data approach. So in this radiomics example, wouldn't it be great if on a pre-ablation CT, for example, you use ML to identify specific textures in that CT image, and these features can predict what may happen post-treatment or localize some of that progression. And even one day, the survival of the patient who undergoes tumor ablation. I think this is a very exciting example, and there's many more that are being worked on. Another one is the image guided sort of in the pre-procedural assessment and supportive tools. So in the procedure room, maybe such as an angiography suite, it's critical to evaluate anatomy and pathophysiological changes. Could also be helpful in the procedure room to know what's actually happening from a QA perspective. But AI tasks for preoperative imaging could actually be something like having the ability to semi-automatically detect. Notice I said semi, because we'll get into some of the challenges with regulatory later on, or automatically with some human intervention and hitting accept, shall we say, to identify organs or lesions and segment them. This is already being used in breast and lung and liver, as well as prostate cancer diagnosis, and could be also valuable in interventional radiology for looking at the evaluation of atherosclerotic plaque, which you could also follow up and see what it looks like after and sort of monitor. Some examples. Now I'm going to expand and just go a little deeper for education's sake, because I think this is where the crux of where the biggest changes or benefits AI is going to be making in IGT. So if you look at AI and how it finds applications in a wide range of settings, so the automation of protocols, where it can base information that's gathered through electronic health records to optimize radiation exposure in a quicker, more automatic way. I'm throwing all these examples out because I hope that those of you in the audience can at least relate to one, if not more of these. Real-time evaluation for proper instrument positioning or implant selection, such as stents. Automatic analysis of anatomy and vasculature. So that's sort of back to understanding what you want to target or what you want to avoid. Fusion of pre-procedure 3D images into interoperative 2D images. Synchronizing those MRI or CT or cone beam CT cross-sectional preoperative imaging into the intraoperative imaging. That's being done today without AI, but I think AI can make it even better to help make those biopsies and those local guided therapies even more accurate. Automatic tools for multimodality registration, which is a combination of what I spoke to above, but maybe doing it in a new way to visualize. And then the last area is a touchless interaction that might actually drive some of that pre-procedure or patient-specific information and link that to literature information, or a way to reduce distraction or procedure time. There's some eye tracking systems out there. There's different sensors that AI can help bring all that information together. And then the last category that I have brought together is using machine learning combined possibly with augmented reality systems. Imagine the world if we could actually provide training and education in a platform where we help people hone their procedural skills. That again, there's some companies out there doing that today. Or for that quality assurance piece that I touched on before, leading new novel ways of assessing performance or improving their competency in a more real life situation. I think AI definitely has that potential to do it. So those are sort of the overall opportunities and give you some idea where we are today. There's current examples, and one is in clinical decision support. There's been a lot of work in GI, endoscopy, colonoscopy, vascular and cardiovascular, neuro applications. There's companies out there that actually monitor QA and safety from a different approach, where they actually count sponges and equipment monitoring to make sure that everything gets out of the patient safely. So those are some today. And I'm going to share with you a video of what a solution that we've done at Imagine with a commercial joint venture partner called Satisfy Health. We partnered with Olympus, who's one of the largest endoscopy manufacturers in the world, to bring a product for colon polyp screening to the market. And this is for real-time malignancy prediction. The key is that anytime you're trying to bring using a disruptive technology, you don't want to disrupt the workflow of the physician, otherwise adoption is going to be disappointing. So what we did here, and hopefully this will work out okay, is the endoscopist performs the procedure as they normally would. We have blue boxes that track multiple polyps and identify them separately. Once they identify them, the physician can then switch into characterization mode. When they switch into characterization mode, they can put the polyp that they want to know in view, and then it actually tells the physician, or supports the physician's decision, I should say, whether that's malignant or benign. The purpose of our tracking is to go into a report. So start to standardize and optimize that automatic reporting. The key that the feedback, we had the first in man where this is being productized. And really where we got the feedback was the physicians were like, okay, you help me, you're not disrupting my workflow. It's providing me with additional information that might take time for me to see, and you're keeping me organized. So I think those are some of the key things that need to be considered when you're making a product, and we'll touch on those now, actually. So what are some of the needs and challenges? I mean, the AI needs are universal, with a few extra for AI in healthcare and a few extra for image-guided therapy. One is data accessibility and curation. Again, you need that access to data. Privacy and trust is a very big one. Regulatory, deployment and adoption, and what I call revenue and value-based care. So the first one, as far as data accessibility, I mean, the OR is a very chaotic, highly dynamic, and actually probably, let me not say chaotic because that sounds negative, dynamic environment. Not all data is currently being acquired or captured. So from the very get-go, to get AI into image-guided therapy, there's a first hurdle, is, interventional procedures aren't routinely captured like other medical imaging procedures. So that's one hurdle that needs to be, or challenge that needs to be overcome. There's a team of specialized physicians in the OR or procedure room who are making decisions on that data. So you need a way to capture that. The images are high resolution. You get down to just some basic challenges of file size and infrastructure to record it, and heteromodality imaging. You need expertise in heteromodality image capture and cohorting to actually be able to get to the next level of an AI solution. So trust and privacy, as I said, are critical, but how do we safeguard individuals? And when I say individuals, I mean patients and users, while leaving the tech companies or med device companies free to build and innovate solutions for AI and IGT. It's absolutely critical that we have that freedom, because innovation is at the crux of what we do and how medical breakthroughs are being done. And if you start to limit it, which it is in some ways, then it really slows down. Now, as far as privacy, HIPAA's consumer health, data privacy protections really fall a little short. On the European Union General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, is a start. It harmonizes data and privacy laws across Europe and protects EU citizens and their data, and it reshapes sort of the way the organizations across the different regions approach data privacy. It mandates that all organizations must have informed consent before they collect sensitive data. The next thing is, so we know these are some challenges, but what recommendations could we give? Again, the world according to Geraldine, and experts. Like these aren't just mine. I've just kind of consolidated. Tech companies, I think, really must be required to educate the users being physicians, users being their internal developers, on exactly what they're going to be doing, and be transparent on how they're going to use the data. Then support the hospital or the physician, even through the whole IRB process, so that patients have an option to decline. But more importantly, it's not about the patients declining. It's about educating them in the way so that they want to actually participate and include their data. Another thing is the tech companies themselves need to really step up. We need to step up and take the initiative to build appropriate safeguards in the way that we build our solutions. And if there's a failure, you must be held accountable. The third thing is governments must implement up-to-date legal frameworks and basically surround healthcare data and make sure that it's regulated, because big and small companies really cannot self-regulate. And ultimately, it is everybody's responsibility. The next challenge, regulatory. So this is the one question that I get asked the most. And you know, the regulatory landscape for AI medical device, this is a great resource, by the way. This information is from a resource called The Medical Futurist. Check out the website. Regulatory authorities such as the FDA and the EMA, the European Medicine Agency, are heavily regulating the medical landscape when it comes to AI. The FDA took a lead, well, particularly took a lead, having issued specific framework around these AI-based algorithms. Since AI has started in medicine and has started to gain traction over the last 10 or 11 years, well, let's say 5 to 10 years, so mid 2010s, early 2010s, there has been 64 AI-based FDA-approved medical devices and algorithms during this time frame. During the similar time frame, there's been a significant number and increase in life science papers describing AI, which rose from, I think, is about 600 in 2010 to over 12,000 or 13,000 in 2019, based on the last data that I've seen. So really what that tells me, and should tell us all, that we're just at the beginning. The potential is just starting to show. That flywheel is just starting to turn. And yeah, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen as fast as a lot of us would like. But the nice and encouraging thing is, it's going to happen. So, you know, 64 isn't a lot, but that will come to be. Now, some of the challenges in the regulatory space, you know, in the field of machine learning, you know, trained and tested need for using large data sets makes it difficult to validate and verify using the existing standards. So new standards need to be developed. Then you get into the locked versus adaptive algorithms. You know, organizations like the FDA, they're very used to, this is my data, this is how I got it, it's not going to change. If it changes, I come back to you. So AI is really fit for adaptive learning, but we really need to lock some things down. And then the last challenge is black box and transparency. And that sort of goes into, you know, how things are currently being done. The regulators in various jurisdictions beyond the borders of the US and EU have also been developing proposals and guidance around some of these emerging challenges. But I feel confident that this will be addressed across the regulatory organizations, and we'll see more and more regulatory approved products, and this will accelerate. The next one is deployment and adoption. I really only put 3 bullets here because you can put a lot of different ones, but I think it really comes down to 3. You can't go for perfection when you're developing and deploying a product, right? Your product needs to be designed for distribution. Don't try to make the best widget that nobody else is doing. Make a widget, get it out there, get some feedback, iterate, be agile, and improve. Because we don't want AI to be one of those technologies that sits on the shelf. And 30 years from now, we're going to be saying, oh, yeah, you know, AI really had the promise, but it never really went anywhere. You know how it's not going to get anywhere? Don't be perfect. when I say perfect, meaning, of course, we have to have all the other things in place, but perfect meaning it can do everything that we set out to do. Start small and build. Listen to the users, don't over design. Because I think that's one of the challenges. Again, sort of back to the first one, design, and pick the right partners for distribution. So if you're a company that's going direct, you can turn this into, make sure that you're building something that the clinicians want and will use. You know, it's that old cartoon. You know, the way that sales sees it, marketing sees it, and the engineering see it. It's the way the AI companies see it, the doctors see it, and the way they want to use it. If you're using a distribution channel, make sure that you pick the right partners for distribution. And again, doesn't have to be the world leader. Just get it out there, because I think the key is practical solutions early. I can't stress that enough. Can you tell? The final challenge is a chicken and an egg. We're not going to solve it, but it's things that we need to think about, right? You have an AI solution or product that you built, and even if you don't overbuild it, and you know that it improves treatment and outcomes, great. You need to get that into the hands of the physicians. Physicians aren't going to use it unless it's actually bringing them value. Hospitals need to see that it's, value or reimbursement, and hospitals tend to need to see that it's bringing them value or revenue or cost savings. So AI products kind of get in that loop of great solution. How do I actually make a difference by getting this? How can I prove that I'm going to make a difference, because I can't get it in until I can show the value-based care. So it's sort of this Mobius loop, but there is definitely ways to throw a rock into that to stop it by what I previously said is start small and build from there. Now, this is a way that we segment the market at Imagia, many different ways to do it. All this is to say that one of the most exciting markets that we see is intervention in medical devices. Those are estimated to be, we broke it down into AI-assisted procedures and robotic-assisted surgery. Net multi-billion-dollar businesses with huge growth. Now, the one axis is that it is highly regulated, because it's AI is the solution, but just to say, if this isn't the area that you're in the right area for opportunity. So I really see AI as a digital elixir, not a magic bullet. Doctors are not going to be replaced by AI, despite what some very big names say. But they will replace some of their menial tasks, and they'll make them do it better, faster, and they'll be grateful for it. Despite continuous progress over the last few decades, AI may never reach the holistic intelligence of humans, and that's okay. I think it's for a few reasons. AI algorithms are intensely hungry, data hungry, which is difficult to obtain. Training can be time-consuming and expensive. You need to make sure that you pose that clinically relevant question, which is a lot harder to come up with than a lot of people think. Human intelligence, we can acquire through one simple observation, but AI software must see the same object potentially thousands of times to recognize it, and it really needs iterative feedback. But having said all this, I think that AI is going to transform data that is otherwise not used or lost, which is actually going to be the crux of how we start to personalize healthcare. It's going to be one of the tools, I should say. So in the short term, I'm trying to, one of the goals of the talk was to sort of show you where I see we are now and where we're going. In the short term, there's clinical decision support tools, as we talked about before. There's reduction in time reduction in procedure time. There's quality assurance. But let me take you on a little bit of a dream here and what that may look like. So I purposely put the BC Cancer Pathway here, and let's just take it from the patient's desire and need to have a whole person approach to say cancer care. I got this source. Well, I didn't put it on there. Obviously, it's from the BC Cancer Agency. Thank you. This is all to show that there's so many different routes in a complex journey that the patient may take. There's also a lot of interaction between different providers. There's a lot of looping back between diagnosis and treatment and monitoring. There's value in creating solutions for patients and providers to connect and improve the system. So let's take a look into the future. Meet Sam. AI has impacted his journey drastically. It has given him back that critical time that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. This is not an extensive nor necessarily correct pathway, but I wanted to give you an example of what a journey may be. So Sam, as part of a screening program, a cancerous lesion was found. AI detected it and characterized it. And this assisted in Sam being triaged. Sam was also triaged because of his positive result. It was triaged through the EHR, and he got into the queue for the treatment planning CT, where AI assisted the segmentation and measurements so that it was more reproducible, and it assisted the physician. For Sam's interventional radiology procedure, there was an AI-driven Fusion 3D image solution and a real-time solution that helped stage his nodule for endobronchial ultrasound. When he went for his follow-up CT, there was an AI digital biomarker that predicted his response, or what his response would be to checkpoint inhibitors, whether he had a mutation, whether he's going to respond, whether he's going to be toxic. It saved him 28 days to make sure that he was on the right drug that he would actually respond to. And as he responded positively to that drug, there was a monitoring and follow-up by AI connecting the data in the reports that improved the consistency and the knowledge of the physician and brought it all in front of the physician at one time. So by accelerating time to receive the appropriate treatment and saving critical time with more efficient allocation of resources, Sam will have time on his side. And that is the world I would like to live in, and that we are trying to change together. So I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Geraldine Adamagia. I'm happy to connect with you that way or on LinkedIn. I really think that we need to pull the community together and make sure that collaboration happens. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Geraldine, for such an excellent talk, and for sharing your experience on the current state of AI in healthcare, along with the challenges and opportunities lying ahead. Okay, so questions time. I can perhaps start. Geraldine, you talked about the key considerations for applying AI in healthcare and emphasized the importance of data, data infrastructure, or the quality of data and accessibility. do you think our Canadian healthcare system, specifically I'm talking about hospitals and clinicians, are prepared and well-resourced to deploy, implement, and collaborate with machine learning researchers at this point? And if you can just provide some examples of current efforts, perhaps started by Imagia or others, to bridge the gap between the machine learning researchers and the end users of the technology?
That is a great question. And I want to be, so on the point of, do I think they're currently ready? I don't. Do I think the desire is there? Yes. Do I think the need is there? Yes. But I don't think they're ready. And the reason is, so from an Imagia experience, you know, getting the legalities and back to all the reasons why I said there should be, right? All those things in place, it takes so much time. Hospitals are there to care for patients in a disease state. So usually, I mean, our hospital system isn't really preventative wellness for the most part. So, you know, they have a day job to do. I think there's lots of hurdles, and I think some of them are internal in organizations. I think there's a lot of initiatives in healthcare organizations to break down their own silos, to allow companies to come in and to help them work on their data. But I think we still have a ways to go. But I think we'll get there. What do I think? I know you didn't ask this, but what do I think that is needed? I think that it's more like they're in healthcare organizations, in internal and external, there has to be cooperation, or at the very least co-opetition. Because let's face it, there's competition in hospitals and between research groups and all that stuff. And we like, you know, yeah, competition's healthy. But at some point, I think for AI to cross that chasm, all those stakeholders, pharma, med device, health organizations, AI experts, blah, 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 we all have to take a different mindset and not have this industry bad, research good, this, that. So I think there's some fundamental things that need to change.
Awesome.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. I know it's a very complicated question.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much for this feedback. We have a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
So I'll ask Tina if you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, yeah, thanks so much, first of all, for the great presentation. It was really informative and insightful. Thank you. So in terms of image-guided therapy and kind of using data in ML, I think you mentioned kind of briefly how sometimes using image data might not necessarily be sustainable because not all infrastructures can support, I guess, the volume of the data itself or what's needed to process it. And I've had experience with this too. And I want to know, kind of in your experience, how have people kind of overcome this hurdle of processing pure image data and making it kind of sustainable for use and clinical adoption?
So again, good question. I think there's, you know, given that I think we're on the early end of, or early side of the curve, I think where we're at doesn't represent where we're going, but I have people who are way smarter than me as far as some of the imaging challenges on my team, but I know that the way that we have approached and I think, Tina, what you mean is like the ingestion of the images. Is that what you mean? Is that where you're going?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So not divulging too much. I mean, we quickly realized in any medical imaging, as you guys know, you know, whether it's CT to CT, MR to MR, EVIS to EVIS, whatever, there's different formats, and there's all these things, even assuming that you can collect the data. I think what we did is we really took a methodical approach and start it small to make sure that we had a way that whatever the modality is that we are trying to ingest in, like the real, when I say modality, I mean real time, although it can be, that we had in our platform a way that we could do it in a scalable way, because, and that means a lot of upfront work, because otherwise I think you go down a rabbit hole where, you know, you're 200 videos in and you know, how is it being tagged and how's it like, and then you might not be able to use that data. So I guess what I would say is take the time up front to figure out some of the challenges that you're trying to solve. I can't really get into how we're solving those because it's kind of unique. Not kind of unique. It is unique, and it's some of the areas that we're going to be patenting. But yeah, I guess that's what I would recommend if you're running into some of those challenges. Take the time to get the high quality at first, high quality images.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Another question from Richard.
Yes. Hi, Geraldine. Thank you. Excellent talk so far. I have a regulatory question for you, tapping into some of your experience at Amagia, maybe elsewhere. How are you finding the agencies, particularly FDA, Health Canada, dealing with the validation of AI in these devices that are being submitted for clearance? In the sense, you know, the question came to mind when I saw your great example of AI being used in that application, looking for polyps. You know, are the agencies demanding, you know, a certain number of experts in the validation? Are they really demanding a lot on the validation of the AI algorithms, or are they advanced in that sense, or is it still a lot of back and forth, a learning curve to get these through the agency and get, you know, and get clearance, assuming you've gone that far?
Yes. So to your first part of the question, yes, it is it's, you know, lots of validation and experts. You know, the FDA has done a lot of excellent work, but there is a certain level of education that needs to be done on both sides. Meaning that the company needs to sort of educate some of the challenges and coming to a solution in the regulatory process that doesn't stifle that to be able to go through. So in our experience, when we go to the agency, it's not our FDA clearance, it's our partners, because we,
right.
You know, so yeah, we just want to just do many with leaders or the right partner. But there had been a lot of back and forth. So you will definitely use those pre-submission meetings, and you will want to make sure that you're crystal clear during all different scenarios. Bring in clinical experts as part of your team as well, because they'll have their own clinical experts, but make sure you have them around the table so that they can explain how this AI solution is going to impact patients and how it should be measured, evaluated, validated. That's what we found most successful. Hopefully that gives you some insight.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Geraldine. Another question from Mariam.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Can you list some open source medical imaging data for research purposes? Like if I want to say experiment, where can I find some data?
I would not be the person to do that, but if you want to reach out to me, we've done a pretty intensive search. Now, you know, we can't, being an industry commercial company, you have to be really careful because you want whatever you develop, you want to be able to commercialize. But if you want to reach out, I can give you some great websites and resources through one of my team members. So just email me at geraldine@amagia.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mariam. Thank you very much, Geraldine. Another question from Tara.
Thanks very much. So Geraldine, you actually slightly touched upon sort of what I was going to ask when you kind of talked about sort of issues in terms of, you know, industry, open source, sharing, you know, data and information. I'm just wondering, I'm imagining working in the Canadian landscape is really different than perhaps working in the US landscape. And I'm just wondering if you find that the Canadian landscape, healthcare landscape kind of lends itself better to these kind of collaborations, or if it is more difficult because there are these kind of issues around you know, capitalizing and other kinds of like HIPAA and other kinds of items, or maybe having to you know, cut shares with you know, healthcare teams or anyway, I'll stop blabbing. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I know what you're asking. So we're proudly Canadian, and we know that our Canadian landscape, there's many more challenges to what we're trying to do in data access than there is in the US. So the US have different secondary use of data that is much more you can more easily get data. I think that's going to start to change. We purposely wanted to do it in Canada, not just because we're proudly Canadian, but we figured that if we could solve or at least break down some of those barriers in Canada and Europe, that as the US started to tighten up on that, the use of their data, that we would be ready for it. Plus two, the US is much more competitive, right? It's a big fish, small pond, or small fish, big pond kind of thing for companies. And we decided that we wanted to focus on Canada and Europe first and then go into the US. So yeah, I think I addressed it there. Like Canada is more challenging, but Canadian healthcare data diverse, right? We have some unique. We solve some unique healthcare challenges in ways that other countries don't because of our social medicine system. So there's a real desire for, and I don't want to say Canadian healthcare data. Of course there is, because everybody just wants data, but there's a real need for the insights from that data. So, you know, even though it's more challenging, I think it's a very valuable place to start.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Geraldine and Tara. Does anyone have any other questions? I don't see any raised hands. Yeah. Z, is that how you say ZI?
Hello. Yeah, it's called Z. Yeah. I'm a first-year PhD student from U of T, and so I don't have much experience about like commercials. So my question may be a little rude, but I still want to ask, because with the development of AI, I see many giant companies, they build some department and build some teams to work on AI in medical, like Google and IBM. But after like 2 or 3 years, there didn't seem to be a good outcome from those departments. And I don't think those departments works well. Like if I remember correctly, it's last month or 2 months ago, some big name from Google Health, they just leave the company. And so I have some friends who also work in those AI companies, and he told me that the reason is because the researchers from the machine learning field, they do not have enough domain knowledge in like medical, like healthcare, so they cannot cooperate well with hospitals. They cannot deploy their technology in real usage smoothly. And I want to ask, what's your opinion about the cooperation between industry and the academy, or the cooperation between like more general computer vision researchers with medical health, which may be more like domain specific view? What do you think about it?
So I think if I can sum up your question so that I can answer it, is what do I think about for researchers to cooperate with big industry and researchers to cooperate with healthcare professionals?
Yes.
Is that what? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I think so. How can I approach this? I think that your comments early on about big organizations not necessarily having the healthcare expertise. Okay.
Yes.
So we don't differentiate. So nobody out there differentiates on their AI pipeline, right? An AI pipeline is an AI pipeline. You have to ingest the data, you have to prepare it, blah, 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 blah. I think where companies can differentiate is basically on their experience in healthcare data. 2D images of cats and dogs on the internet and coming up with a good algorithm is way different than dealing with 3D CT volumes or real-time multimodality data that you're missing pieces and it's not all consistent and it's unbalanced data sets and all those things in that kind of environment. So I think it's really needed to have healthcare experience. I mean, that's one of the things that at Imagia, that's why our people are here, right? The big companies are just down the street. They're going to pay way more. Sorry, guys. They're going to pay way more. But if the researchers are there for that reason, because they want to make a difference to patients, then they're going to take the time to really dig in and know some of those challenges. So I think I'm trying to answer that first part of your thing where you get the healthcare expertise because you want to make a difference, I believe. You can make a difference in many different things and it's just as worthwhile. That's not it. I'm just saying that one and the other it's an environmental thing, I believe. The next thing is, I think medical researchers, as far as working with industry or hospitals, both of them have amazing opportunities and some challenges, and they're not always equal or opposite, but they're there. So I think as a medical researcher, you just need to figure out what is most important to you in the environment and the type of work that you want to do, and then target that to go after it, because grass isn't greener on, I mean, this isn't an AI thing, this is just a life experience thing. Grass isn't greener on the other side. Every angle has its own challenges. It's just you need to figure out where you're going to get the best results or experience that you want, because each have something to offer. And sometimes you can bring them together, is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to be at that intersection of all of it. And it's not always an easy or comfortable spot, because you can't please everybody, but somebody needs to be in that center to be the place where all the spokes come together.
Yes, thanks for the reply. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thank you. I'm mindful of our time. Just a last question from Dr. Terry Peters.
Hi, Terry.
Thanks very much for that great overview. So from your perspective, what's the most prominent unmet need in IGT that you feel that can be addressed by AI where conventional techniques have failed? In other words, what's the most prominent killer app for AI in IGT?
Oh, it's like asking me what child's my favorite. Terry, I wish I could sound really smart and give you an answer of one thing. I think the most, so back to, I'm gonna circle back. What I see from physicians in practice versus what I think is really cool and sexy is, I think there's a real need for technologies that improve the procedure. So depending on what form of IGT you're looking at, I would say anything that has to do with helping them locate anatomy. So kind of back to, and I don't like to use the CAD word, okay? I like to use the clinical decision support versus computer-aided diagnostics. Anything that helps them know where to hit or to stay away from, I think is the first thing that's going to be a bit of a game changer. All the other things are going to change it too, but since you put me on the spot, I think that's what I'll say, and I reserve the right to change my mind. But I think it's okay.
Fair enough. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. Just mindful of our time, but we'll have to end the session. I realized that a couple of people had questions, but again, please feel free to email me and I can connect with Geraldine, or feel free to reach out to Geraldine. She has previously provided her email. Thank you again, Geraldine. It was a real pleasure to have you again this afternoon, and thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks to our attendees for joining us. Again, please note our next lecture is taking place on Thursday, October 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we will be discussing regulation of AI in healthcare. So with that, thank you very much again, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the interaction.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.